still kind of sick. So that came out a little weird. What's up, everybody? It's waba, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the developer manifesto that was just put out, titled Path of Nerfs, for the upcoming patch in 3.1. As I die. But the reason why I want to talk about this is I actually really like that Chris Wilson had done this. I like the context that was provided for the reasoning behind all these nerfs. Some of them are a little left field, but honestly, I think all of these are good for the general direction of the game. You know, obviously some of them are like long time coming, Valpact, but I'm glad GGG has taken the time to include this into a developer manifesto, especially because we're going to begin the patch notes tomorrow, and there's still going to be nerfs, and there are also going to be buffs in the patch notes tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. But these are on their own enough to merit a little bit more of an explanation from GGG, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. Let's get right into it. First off, Valpact is confirmed. It's changing. It is changing to doubling your leech rate, as it was so subtly teased by Carl in that sweet IGN video. But yeah, Valpact is no longer going to be granting instant leech. Now, as somebody who is like mostly a totem player, and I'm going to probably stick with builds that don't utilize leech or Valpact, this doesn't affect me too much, but I do actually really like this change, and it makes weirdly enough, it actually makes playing melee a little bit more appealing to me, because when I have played builds that utilize Valpact, I did not like the amount of stress, or the whole idea of like, I'm losing 80% of my health, I'm instantly gaining back 80% of my health. It made me feel weirdly squishy, or not as tanky as I really was. So I didn't really like that, and I found that to be a little stressful. But I think it was definitely not good for the game, especially seeing Valpact and instant leech trivialize a lot of content. I think back to, you know, one of the first times I saw someone doing a shaper kill, and they were standing in the beam with Valpact, just leeching through it, and I actually really hated that. And back then I thought, okay, well, why can't GGG just make it to where monsters, you know, why is it that the shaper beam doesn't have a debuff on it that says the player is unable to leech, you know, or a player is unable to benefit from instant leech, or just something like that? But it makes more sense just to change Valpact overall. As we can see in the past few patches, it has become more and more apparent that Valpact has been the root of a lot of problems in Path of Exile. So I definitely like that we're not going to be seeing a single keystone trivialize content as much. And I also like the fact that it's actually going to be giving a little bit more synergy with some of the existing leech nodes, such as Hematophagy and Vitality Void. You know, it was a little weird that when Valpact was moved and all the leech nodes were added, that you got to benefit while you were leeching, but Valpact actually kind of undid that. So it was a little, thematically, it didn't really make sense. But I think this is a good change, doubling the leech, pretty good. But about Valpact, you know, then all of a sudden the question comes to, like, what about Aziri's Acuity? And I'm not entirely sure if this change, because Aziri's Acuity is now actually going to be granting Valpact if you've performed a critical strike recently. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I don't know how valuable these are going to become anymore. Obviously, they're going to be pretty valuable because they're going to be rare. You know, they're off of the Uber at Ziri, still one of the hardest encounters that the game has to offer. So they're obviously still going to carry that value with them, but I just don't understand. I don't think it's going to be a real chase item anymore. At best, maybe casters would use it just to save the passive points, because you can no longer go to the shadow crit area as a spellcaster and just dip down 3 or 4 points and grab Valpact. Now Valpact is being moved all the way to the duelist area, so maybe Aziri's Acuity is just a way to save you passive points. I'm not really sure about that. And then on top of that, Aziri's Acuities seem like they're actually itemized for a build that would need intelligence, because they have so much intelligence on them. Well, a duelist would need intelligence, but then you have Valpact in your passive tree. So unfortunately, I think Aziri's Acuity is going to take a pretty big hit, and most of its value is going to be retained in the fact that it's just a really rare drop. Don't know really how I feel about that. I'm not sure if there are going to be any legacy versions either, but we'll see where that goes. So then we also had some changes to Slayer. Now, I haven't played Slayer too often, and I anticipate it being a very popular option, especially with the changes to Valpact coming up, because you're just going to have, I think you're going to have more leech than you did prior. But now, when the Slayer Ascendancy, the Brutal Fervor point no longer grants maximum life leech rate. And on top of that, Hematophagy and Vitality Void now only grant 3% maximum life leech rate, down from 5%. That's what I was saying earlier, how it has a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? You know the word that I'm looking for. It has more synergy with actual leech nodes, and that's actually really cool. But Slayer's going to be really good. I haven't played a Slayer. Slayer has been slightly appealing to me because it feels like a real melee character that is just going in really hard, getting all this leech. Endless Hunger is amazing, and I'm sure playing an Endless Hunger build feels amazing. It looks really good, when you see someone go through a pack and then run through traps with no damage taken because they're still leeching or on burning ground or desecrated ground or whatever. I'd imagine that Slayer is going to feel really good with these changes to Valpact. So, that's a good change. Cool. That makes sense with the changes to Valpact. Aziri's Acuity, we'll see about that. Next change, nerf that we have, is to Mind Over Matter. Now, I kind of wonder if this was a little too soon. Mind Over Matter will no longer grant as much mana as it did before. We do not know the values quite yet. I'm hoping that it's not too gutted, but knowing GGG, there's a good chance it's going to be pretty harsh. But the thing that I have to say about this, though, is that I don't, maybe this is just me in my experience, but I feel that people don't really value mana prefixes on pieces of gear as much as they should, because you could get so much from Mind Over Matter. So I think you'll still be able to achieve similar levels of mana, especially if you were ignoring mana rolls on your gear. So I think this is a good change. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Again, I'm going to now just prioritize mana on my gear, especially depending on how drastic the cut to mana is on the nodes behind Mind Over Matter. So cool. Vulnerability is now a strength gem. Finally, it's happened. This has never really been something that I've complained about, but I've definitely seen people complain about this on the Reddit, and it makes sense. Vulnerability is a gem that provides more physical damage and increased damage over time. This makes sense with bleed. However, it's an intelligence-based gem. which is, so it's a blue gem. I don't, obviously the blue gem slot isn't so much the problem. It's more the intelligence of it. So since it is now a strength-based gem, I'm not entirely sure if there's going to be an intelligence requirement on it, but I anticipate it's going to be much lower. People are going to be happy about this, especially when you have builds like, or keystones like Crimson Dance now. So you could have a more physical and bleed focused build. Now all of a sudden you don't have to worry about getting all the intelligence for your vulnerability while you're leveling. Obviously when you're level 80 plus, 85 plus, you have some points and you could get intelligence if you really need it. But other than that, vulnerability being a strength-based gem is a good thing. Despair. Finally, we have a curse that affects chaos damage. Now, Despair is going to reduce chaos resist, and it's going to increase damage over time taken, and it grants added chaos damage to hits against cursed enemies. This is pretty good. The only thing I kind of wonder about this is if it's going to be included in the curse selection for map mods. So this is actually, in a weird way, I think it's going to make chaos resist a little bit more valuable, especially if it is something that you can get on a map. And then yeah, so that's good. But the thing about Despair is it appears that, at least in this manifesto, that it was split from Wither. So Wither now has a lower maximum stack limit, down from 15 from 20, and it has lower damage taken effect per stack. It's from 7% down to 6%. I'm curious to know if Wither, which is a channeled spell, and Despair, a curse, if the two of them together are greater than pre-nerf Wither. I want to say yes, they are, especially because of the minus chaos resist that you would get from Despair. But I'm not entirely sure. They make it seem like it won't be as much, kind of, but it looks pretty good. So I'm definitely excited for that. I'm excited to have an actual a chaos resist curse. So yeah. Oh, and also now that we've changed vulnerability and we've changed Despair, Wither, we've added Despair, changed vulnerability, and we changed Wither. Witchfire Brew will also now apply Despair instead of vulnerability. So yeah, on to some changes. That we all kind of expected. Dark Pact. So Dark Pact, when cast using your life, no longer has bonus radius, and the damage bonus has been reduced from 95% more damage with hits and ailments when you're using your life to 76% more damage. So yeah, it got hit pretty hard. Initial question reading this, again, I know there are more nerfs coming, but no changes to Dark Pact on totems. And yeah, so that's a little weird. And on top of that, this is classic GGG, hitting something every possible way that it can. And it's probably still going to be okay, but with the removal of Val Pact, with less radius, the Reddit is already up in flames about this. So I'm not entirely sure how good it's actually going to be anymore. And again, I'm not sure if this actually affects totems. If this doesn't change anything for totems casting it, then you're still going to have some really strong Dark Pact totem builds out there. But with just the changes to casting on your own life, that's pretty big. And again, classic GGG to just destroy something, as it appears in patch notes, at least. So, Barrage, another one we kind of expected. Barrage no longer has the additional projectile enchantment available in the Merciless Labyrinth. The equivalent in-game Labyrinth enchantment now grants 1 additional barrage projectile, down from +2. Existing helmet enchants are unmodified. So yeah, there will be legacy versions of this in standard. It's going to be pretty valuable. But, you know, the thing about this is I think it just kind of, while it was really, really good, I think it gives players kind of more of an option in how they're going to achieve their additional projectiles. You can still get additional projectile on a bow. You can still get additional projectile on a quiver, albeit you have to corrupt them to get these additional projectiles. Or you could use a Death's Opus, you know, which has what, 2 additional projectiles. So there are other ways you could get additional projectiles if you really want them. So I don't really think that this is that big of a deal. However, the +2 projectiles from Uber Lab was really accessible because people just run Uber Lab for a number of reasons. You don't only run Uber Lab, at least you don't farm Uber Lab only for helmet chance. You do it for maps. You do it for quality gems. You do it for divination cards. You know, they're the people who just carry people through Uber Lab. So the helmet chant, while very valuable and it was usually expensive in leagues, was pretty accessible. You know, after a certain amount of time in a challenge league. So I think it's fine that they changed it to 1 projectile because again, it takes away some of that feeling of I have to get this on my helm, otherwise my build is garbage, and it puts a little bit more power into the other ways you can get it. You know, again, enchant or corrupting a quiver to get +1, and corrupting a bow to get +1. Both of which I know are pretty risky, but it still makes it a little bit more valuable to have those items with +1 projectiles or +1 arrows. So this is actually a change that wasn't expecting, but I could see why. But it's actually kind of uncharacteristic of GGG. So we had GGG destroy. You know, let's just say they destroy Dark Pact, you know, for argument's sake. Let's just say Dark Pact is in the gutter now, thanks to what they did. But at the same time, they just kind of tweaked Doomfletch just a little bit, which I don't understand how they even see that as being consistent. Of course, they're not saying they're being consistent about that, but let's just talk about what Doomfletch is. Doomfletch now gives you 100% of physical damage as a random element. Doomfletch's Prism gives you 100% physical damage as each element. So you're losing 10% of physical damage as, you know, X element. And then on top of that, it is losing its crit. Okay, cool. You know, you're losing your crit. That sucks. But it's actually gaining a little bit more physical damage. It's going from a 12 to 20 roll max to a 16 to 24 roll max. So I find this tuning of Doomfletch Prism to be interesting because it's still going to be really good. It's still going to be a great option for players because you know, kind of like the Barrage Helmet Chant, it's accessible. Once you get, you know, some Doomfletch Prisms or just Doomfletches, you know, get some well-roll ones, you get some prophecies, bam, you have yourself a great bow. I really hope that this change to Doomfletch and Doomfletch Prism doesn't just result in a huge nerf to it eventually, like what we saw with what's that bow? Reach of the Council. Reach of the Council got absolutely destroyed, and I hope we don't see that again with Doomfletch Prism. I've liked Doomfletch Prism for a really long time. I've always wanted a Doomfletch Prism build. You know, maybe I'll play one this time around. I don't know. Maybe I'll just use my +1 additional arrow Doomfletch Prism in standard that I have just sitting in there. Of course, I need to 6-link it, but that's besides the point. Oh, one last little thing. I know that a lot of Doomfletch Prism builds are actually running Ascendant. So since a lot of them are running Ascendant, you can utilize that new gem that gives you 0.5% base crit chance if you take a Shadow starting node. I forgot what it's called. It's a pretty cool jewel. You should check it out. Anyway, on to some other unexpected nerfs. Queen of the Forest. Cute dog. I'm sorry, bro. I'm really sorry. So, Queen of the Forest, it no longer, well, not no longer, it has a cap of movement speed of 100%. And it doesn't have nearly as much evasion on it. You know, I'm actually just going to go ahead and read the statement to Queen of the Forest, because you went pretty fast on Queen of the Forest. I know you did. I know you did, cute dog. I've seen your stream. It was a little ridiculous, and I've seen other people go insanely fast. So let's go ahead and read this. Quote, changes to evasion-based types in the Fall of Oriath both pushed the evasion rating of this item too high and took the movement speed this item granted to an extreme. We never intended for a single item to be able to provide such movement speed. Over time, as more movement speed and evasion became available, this item has become unreasonable. The speed players were attaining was not something that the game was designed to handle. This cap is unlikely to affect average use of this item. So yeah, you were going too damn fast, cute dog. You were just going way too fast. All right? That goes for all of you Queen of the Forest players out there. You guys were going way too fast if you're really abusing it. 100% movement speed is still really good. And I still think it will feel pretty good. You know, especially at the end, it says this cap is unlikely to affect average use of this item. So, I'm curious if this cap is including the movement speed penalty on Queen of the Forest, or if it's not. So it's actually a sly way of being like, the cap is at 100%. Just kidding, 75%. Anyway, Rise of the Phoenix, another change that was a little left field, but I think it's fine overall. I think a lot of people might be a little upset by this because this change was so out of nowhere. But now it no longer grants you 8% maximum fire resistance and has gone down to 5%. The life regeneration has been increased from 6 to 15 to 20. LOL, like that still even matters. That change to the life regen would matter more if it didn't have the following new mods on there, where now you get 40 to 60 life on Rise of the Phoenix. So yeah, out of nowhere. But this is actually kind of similar to the Barrage situation, where you'll just have people pursuing or valuing other sources of maximum resist. Again, a lot of it is through corruptions. You could get +1 maximum resist on your amulet. You can get +1 maximum resist on your chest piece. I completely understand that this is not really ideal, but it does kind of give more value to those stats and makes it still, again, achievable. So even though if you were to get +1 max res on each slot, you would only be at 7% maximum resist. You would have one less. But I would agree that Rise of the Phoenix did make it a little too easy to sustain Righteous Fire. That's just me. So yeah, on to the last thing of Path of Nerfs. And, well, the grind is back for level 95 to 100. Unless, of course, we find out that in Abyss League, the fissures that appear in the ground give you insane amounts of experience, and then people just figure out a way to get even more experience, which, players are getting pretty good at this game, and they're getting more and more efficient. So, yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and read this because it will provide a little bit more context. Each league, the race to 100 is over more quickly than the previous one. Beachheads, hello. As players become more efficient and the experience available gets larger, we receive overwhelming feedback, including from top racers, that this process should be made longer. We're going to be careful though, and adjust it a bit at a time. In 3.1, this takes the form of small additional experience penalties between level 95 and 99 that have the following effect. So at 95 to 96, it's 6.5% more. 96 to 97, 11.5% more to 98, 18.7% more to 99, 28.25% more. And then 99 to 100 is 40% more experience. This is pretty big, and I feel like this adds quite a bit of prestige. Well, maybe not quite a bit of prestige because it's just more playtime realistically, but this is definitely a good change for the game overall. I recently found myself in a position where I've thought that, okay, I know how to do this now. I know how to map efficiently. I know how to manipulate my atlas. I know how to use sextants. I know what I need in my builds. I know what I need to actually do to play as efficiently as possible. And once I started to do that, I got level 96 in Turmoil. I got level 98 in Mayhem. And while I understand that those 10-day events, there's a lot of experience available, there were plenty of times where I just wasn't playing efficiently. In fact, I would say that I really only started to play efficiently, like as efficiently as I should be, the last 2 days of Mayhem. The last 2 or 3 days of Mayhem. So knowing what I know now, level 100 seemed far more achievable than it ever has been to me. To the point where, before I read this manifesto, I thought, assuming I wouldn't die to something ridiculous, like a crash or whatever, that a level 100 was doable within 2.5 weeks for me. And I'm a dad. And I'm someone who can't play as much as other people. It's just about playing efficiently. And that same kind of thought process, I thought, oh, well, if I get level 100 that fast, what am I going to do after that? Get another level 100. So this actually kind of extends it a little bit more, and I'm okay with this because, again, I think what it all really comes down to is playing efficiently. Because when you play efficiently, not only do you gain experience more efficiently, but you gain more currency efficiently. And when you have more currency, you have more power for everything, for your characters, for your damage, for experience gaining. Now, and the one thing I will also add to this, because again, I know it's not necessarily the right example, saying that, oh, I got level 96 in Turmoil, and then I got level 98 in Mayhem. In both of these leagues, I was sitting on a lot of currency. And trading slowed down the second half of both of these events. Maybe the last third of both of these events. So if trading is still alive and well, and I'm actually using my currency to its fullest potential and buying tons of sextants and doing everything that I know I could do, level 100 doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It really doesn't. After everything that I've learned. So I'm glad to see these changes for the grind from level 95 to 100. It's going to make it more challenging, and I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I'm going to embrace it. Because for 3.1, it is the first league where I have 2 goals, 36 out of 40 challenges, and level 100. So yeah, Path of Nerfs. It's been fun. It's definitely been fun. All these things are good overall. I think GGG, while inconsistent with some of the things, overall these are all pretty good. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know if you think any of these nerfs were too much. I just want to hear what you guys think. I want to get a conversation going. I really appreciate that, and I like to see how other players actually feel about this, so I can roll that into my own kind of arsenal of opinions. And yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you want to check me out on stream, it's twitch.tv/wabachaw. You can also add me in game at wabachaw, and you can follow me on Twitter at wabachaw. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.